This video shows the startup procedure of the laser and how to set up the worktop plane. So, first things first, I go around making sure that the worktops are ready for me to template. Make sure everything's secure, make sure you've got all the items you need to be templating, hobs, sinks, taps, etc. Making sure that end panels aren't going to move on you, especially if they're unsupported and kind of like waiting for an appliance space. Sometimes they move, so you need to make sure that they're in the position you actually want them to be templated and square, etc. So first things first, what we need to do here is set the worktop plane. That is an equilateral triangle, so the spacing needs to be equal from front to back, and you need to make a equilateral triangle in the direction that's shown here. Now for the startup procedure of the laser, ensuring that that top red dot is locked together before you turn it on is really crucial. So first things first, ensure that's locked on, turn your laser on, and then now you're ready to start up the software. So now we'll fire up the software, and then you'll see it will tell you about that locking procedure, and also it will now tell you to set the plane from left to right. So this is what we're going to do, and we've already set the triangles up. So now we'll set the plane, first shooting the left plane line, and you'll see on those little targets that there is a set plane line. Obviously you need to make sure they're all in the same direction and keep everything on that line. That's why it's crucial that the area you're shooting is level as well, because obviously the plane line needs to be level. So once you set them from left to right, and then finally the back one, that should be plane successful. Now, in order for you to get a successful plane, it needs to be at least 300 mil. The triangle needs to be at least 300 mil apart from each other. So basically a 300 millimeter equilateral triangle or above will be fine. So now we've set the plane, we can start shooting what we need to shoot. So it automatically starts in line mode, and I go around shooting most of my lines first. This scenario is a true handler's kitchen, so I'm shooting directly off the trims. But what you do is basically you shoot anything that you need to gauge data-wise on for whatever you're going to basically be able to make your worktops off. So whether that be your end panels, anything that's stagnant and doesn't move. You don't want to be shooting doors because they move, and likelihood is the fitter hasn't actually leveled them up at the point of template. So really you want something that's static. End panels, carcass lines, trims, things like that. Using my little targets with the pin attachments in, you can see around corners which obviously the laser can't normally see around. So that's what's happened on that end panel there. And then here you can see that I have got a spirit level up against my panel. Now this panel is particularly shiny and will confuse the dot quite easily. So what we're doing there is in essence bringing the panel off by the width of that spirit level. That spirit level specifically to that pinpoint is 60 mil. That's something that I use all the time, so I know for a fact that those 2 points are 60 mil further in than where my panel is. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to shoot those. And this works for any panel or area. You can do this with a shelf, you can do it whatever you need to, but basically in essence you're taking the laser line away from the shiny point and allowing it to basically shoot itself accurately. And this can also happen if you're really on a really tight angle to a tower end or something like that, and you can't quite get a clear crisp dot. I use this same method to basically be able to shoot a lot more accurately. Now as soon as I do a measurement where it's not in the actual true location and it's out by 60-70 mil, whatever it is, I automatically go in and offset and put it into the correct location before moving on, because obviously it's something that you could get slipped up on really easily. If you forget to move that line back, then you're going to be completely in the wrong location for when the worktops are finished. I used a little cross there just to show me where the end of the end panel is, because obviously we'll need to polish anything beyond that point. And now what I'm doing is I'm just extending a line for the center of the hob location. Using the cross feature once again, the cross is brilliant for this. You only need to use one point of data, so you don't need to use 2 like you do in the line mode. 1 cross will give you a data point for you to be able to basically come off from at a later date. So this is really good for taking centers or any location that you just need to basically keep for later. So right now, doing the same thing with my sink. I've already pre-worked out where my sink's going to go, and that is basically my center of the sink location ready for me to make later. What I'm doing now is just changing some, well, I was going to be changing some colors. I'm now just going to add in some more data points just for later. We've got splashbacks on this particular job, and that will just help me line up things later on just for a bit of a sanity check. So now the front of the carcass is done, now we can start doing the walls. Now the increments on the wall, basically the bigger the gap in between, the less accurate your job's going to be. Now for most jobs with upstands, you do not have to be measuring the wall at ridiculously tight increments. Anything from about 100 to 200 mil increments are going to be fine. If you're going to do something like a brick wall scribe, or anything which needs to be a lot more accurate, obviously the more and more measurements you take on that wall, the better it's going to be, and the more accurate you're going to follow the curve. But in this case, we're just going to go along every 250 mil, just taking a measurement each point in the line mode, and obviously this is going to trace until we tell it to stop. It will trace every single point that we click on the screen. So normally you don't want anything obstructing it, so I moved the sink in this scenario just to keep it out of the way. So we get all the way into the corner here. I stop slightly shy of the corner, and then I use the start new line feature and then move on to my next wall. This creates a slight gap on the drawing for now, but I've found this is the most accurate way. So now when we've started new line, you can see we're slightly off the wall and it hasn't done the corner yet, but what we will do in the on-site edit is add all those together and join all the lines together which aren't connecting currently. And now we just continue through. Now you do not need to do this in any particular order. You can do any of your room in any order you want. You don't have to do carcasses first, you don't have to do walls first, you don't have to go left to right. The only time you have to go left to right is to set the plane. In terms of this, you can take your measurements however which way you want to. It doesn't make any difference, and accuracy also doesn't matter here in terms of order or anything like that. So the only thing you really need to watch out for with the laser, you want to make sure it's a nice crisp dot, and also you need to watch out for things where the dot is going to be reflected back poorly, like on a shiny end panel like we've got here.